Destiny Slayer is a national favorite game adored by many gamers. However, due to its immense popularity, the developers have become lax in fixing bugs, leading to numerous glitches in the game. Notable among these are slaves disobeying their masters and walking through walls, or extremely long loading times for different levels. For Tamatsu, all these bugs are of no concern. His sole focus is on the character Xena in the game. According to the storyline, Xena is fated to die, a development Tamatsu disagrees with. He complained to the developers, hoping for a change, but to no avail. Xena still dies, despite Tamatsu exploiting a wall glitch bug to try and save her. After completing the game, Tamatsu still visits Xena's grave one last time before finally letting go. That night, as he slept, Tamatsu rolled off the bed, hit his head on the floor, and was transported into the game world as Luster, a character whom NPC Xena must follow and serve. Luster, the disgraced fourth prince of the Empire, is destined to be executed. His only ally is Xena, who he saved from bullies and took into his service, where she served him with utter loyalty. In her final moments, Xena blames herself for not protecting her master and commits suicide to follow Luster in death. Now, as Luster, Tamatsu must correct his mistakes, change the storyline, and prevent Xena's death. When Xena enters the room, Tamatsu is startled, having longed to talk to her. Facing Xena makes him feel pressured. He tries to act like Luster, but this makes Xena suspicious of her master's unusual behavior. Tamatsu hurriedly explains that he's feeling hot, prompting Xena to check his temperature by pressing their foreheads together. Feeling guilty about her worry, Tamatsu plays another role, hoping Xena would sleep with him. Xena, blushing fiercely at this unprecedented request, accepts it as it's an order from Luster. That night, Tamatsu lies beside Xena, too pressured to sleep, his nose bleeding every time Xena, in her sleep, moves closer to him. After a restless night, the morning comes. Xena gets up early to prepare breakfast for him. Tamatsu eagerly sits down to eat, and it's only later that he notices another person eating across him. It's the third prince of the Empire, who always bullies his younger brother Luster, mocking him as weak and a disgrace to the royal title and empire. Tamatsu ignores the prince's taunts, focusing only on the food Xena painstakingly prepared. When the prince touches the food, Tamatsu wants to slap him, but being weak, he can only bow and apologize, which only emboldens the prince further. Immediately after, he set their dining table on fire and jumped out the window, informing Tamatsu that he had used hellfire, which could only be extinguished with holy water and that Tamatsu had to extinguish it himself, or it would burn down his entire castle. Facing the flames, Tamatsu racked his brain for a solution and realized this might be similar to the game. He immediately started cooking and then left the room, and as he suspected, the fire extinguished itself once he stepped out. Tamatsu had used a game's fire bug, something he couldn't believe worked in this world. He planned to exploit this bug to conquer dungeons and level up. Once stronger, he could protect Xena. Excitedly, Tamatsu called Xena to join him in the dungeons. Suddenly, Xena pulled out a dagger from under her skirt, pointing it at Tamatsu's face, demanding to know who he was to dare impersonate her master. This unexpected behavior from Xena, not present in the original game, shocked Tamatsu. His actions since yesterday must have made her suspicious that he wasn't Luster. In desperation, Tamatsu forcefully raised his voice, scolding Xena, but she still didn't believe he was Luster. Xena, having a deep gratitude towards Luster and knowing him well, was certain the person in front of her wasn't her master. Tamatsu started to panic, realizing that if Xena discovered she had killed her master, she would surely commit suicide. He didn't care about his own life, but Xena had to live, that was his purpose, even if it meant deceiving her. He decided to continue impersonating Luster. Tamatsu calmed down and recounted the story of their first meeting, when Xena fainted in an alley and ate all his food upon waking. Initially, Xena thought Luster had told him the story, but as Tamatsu detailed even the most private moments, she became embarrassed, realizing he was not an imposter. Ashamed of having threatened her master, Xena turned the dagger on herself to atone, but Tamatsu quickly knocked it away and pinned her to the wall, ordering her not to die. He hoped this incident would make Xena even more loyal, as he dreamed of becoming stronger, and for that, he needed Xena's strength. Explaining this was enough. Next, they needed to head to dungeons to level up. Unsure of which dungeons to tackle, Tamatsu asked Xena for her opinion. Xena suggested they should head to the Shoisa dungeon in the north, a very simple one that even a level 1 player could enter. Tamatsu, having completed the game, was familiar with all the dungeons and their required levels. For instance, entering the Empire's dungeon required at least level 80, while hidden dungeons weren't part of the main storyline and had to be discovered by players. Despite knowing this, the experience was different for Tamatsu now that he wasn't just playing in front of a TV but actually living as a character in the game. This thrilled him, and he wondered what kinds of monsters they would encounter. Xena handed Tamatsu a pin to measure his strength, revealing that Luster was still at level 1 while she was at level 15, ensuring his safety under her protection. They then set off for the dungeon. Tamatsu rode a horse with Xena to the dungeon entrance. Knowing various game bugs, he hoped they would be useful in his journey, especially with only 5 years before Luster's destined death. He was determined to become strong enough to change his fate, proving himself in this first dungeon. Xena magically stored the horse, and the two entered the dungeon together. Tamatsu's goal was to reach level 2 and earn a magic point. Xena handed him a level measuring pin that would notify him upon reaching level 2. They started to clear the dungeon, with Xena attacking monsters fiercely while Tamatsu observed from behind. In the game, being in a team with strong players meant significant rewards, regardless of his own contribution. Luster was a weak character, vulnerable in any situation, so this hunt was to strengthen his feeble body. When Xena alerted him of 2 approaching monsters, Tamatsu fled, not yet strong enough to fight. Xena, however, easily decapitated the 2 goblins, surprising Tamatsu with her overwhelming strength, which boded well for his plans. Suddenly, Tamatsu noticed a goblin behind him and narrowly dodged its attack. Hearing her master's scream, Xena quickly returned and killed the goblin, saving Tamatsu, but she slipped and fell into his arms. Xena then realized something warm under her feet. She wasn't wearing underwear, which embarrassed Tamatsu. As he was about to ask her to stand up, another goblin attacked. Xena blocked its assault with her sword but couldn't stand up, leaving Tamatsu pinned underneath. Spotting another goblin charging at them, Tamatsu realized Xena was defenseless and grabbed a nearby sword. Determined to protect Xena and prevent the filthy creature from touching her, he successfully wielded the magic sword and blocked the goblin's attack. Luster's profession as a wizard made it difficult for him to use a sword. In the current situation, Tamatsu could still be killed by the goblin, and with Xena under his feet, it was becoming increasingly uncomfortable. He was reaching his limit. The weak body of this character couldn't resist forever. At that moment, Tamatsu noticed that Xena had one free hand resting on his chest. He thought of giving her his sword to deal with the goblin, but discarded the idea, knowing that if he let go of the sword, the goblin would kill him. He adjusted his mindset, determined to find a way out as someone who had conquered the game. Suddenly, Tamatsu remembered something. From one sword, he created 2 and handed one to Xena. With a single strike, she defeated the 2 goblins. This was the weapon duplication bug. Although Tamatsu could only use one sword, this bug had saved his life. The day's mission was complete, and Tamatsu leveled up, ready to learn basic magic. After the dungeon raid, Tamatsu collected many items dropped by the goblins. Selling them, he headed to the library. In the game, reaching certain levels unlocked magic learning, and Tamatsu was there to find suitable magic for himself. His appearance surprised the staff, but he quickly found the magic he needed. He took Xena hunting to test his new spell. Since the previous day, Xena had been embarrassed and avoided talking to Tamatsu. He cleared the air, claiming he had fainted from exhaustion after handing her the sword and thanked her for saving him from the goblins. Xena was relieved, thinking he was unaware of the embarrassing incident. Entering the dungeon, they were attacked by a goblin, providing Tamatsu an opportunity to test his new spell. He used slip magic, making the ground around the goblin extremely slippery, allowing Xena to be headed easily. With his help, they gained more experience than the day before, and Tamatsu was more excited than ever. Slip magic had saved him many times even in the official game. In the main storyline, Tamatsu had to play the role of a hero, a powerful character named Karen who was an ally. Karen, the daughter of a baron, became a knight of the kingdom at 16 and possessed unmatched strength. It would be great if Tamatsu could have her as an ally now, but that was just a wishful thinking. Karen would never cooperate with a prince from a rival country. Feeling his mana depleted, Tamatsu asked Xena to stay on guard while he rested outside. Repeating the cycle of depleting mana and then replenishing it with potions, and killing goblins, Tamatsu quickly leveled up. He returned to the library to learn more magic, and after 3 days, he mastered wind magic. For the first time, he was proud of himself, able to solo a goblin. As he celebrated, another goblin attacked, which he defeated with the newly learned lightning magic. It was weaker than wind magic but had a longer range, ideal for wearing down the goblin. Tamatsu and Xena reached the deepest part of the Shiisa dungeon. Because Tamatsu could conquer the dungeon below level 5, he received a special title and skill, making future leveling easier. Ending the day's adventure, they left the dungeon just as a storm hit, leading to a situation where Xena had to help Tamatsu bathe. In the game's main story, Luster, the character Tamatsu inhabited, always avoided bathing with Xena. He would only bathe when she was busy cooking, knowing she would insist on scrubbing his back. But this time, they had to bathe immediately to avoid getting sick, and Tamatsu struggled to maintain his composure with Xena behind him. To distract himself, he asked Xena about the current relationship between the kingdom and the empire. Even though Luster was still young, his true identity was the fourth prince of the empire. The question helped Tamatsu refocus his mind, although he already knew everything about the game. The kingdom and the empire currently had good relations, but in 5 years, a war would break out. The kingdom was where the game's main character lived, and the empire was Tamatsu's current location. The kingdom's hero would fight against the empire, never backing down despite being in a difficult situation. According to the storyline, Luster and the hero were destined to meet and fight a duel, resulting in Luster's defeat and execution by the empire. At this moment, Tamatsu remembered something crucial. In 3 years, Luster and the hero would meet at the kingdom's academy. If Tamatsu could convincingly play Luster and become close friends with the hero, he could avoid the duel, saving both their lives. If he didn't die, Xena wouldn't either. To achieve this, Tamatsu needed to become stronger. 3 years was too long for Tamatsu to wait to meet the hero. He wanted to meet him as soon as possible, but he needed a plan to study abroad in the kingdom. Tamatsu recalled a scene where he was practicing magic with Xena. Although his cat scratch magic couldn't even harm Xena, the king witnessed Luster's use of magic. Previously thinking of his fourth son as a useless individual, the king now saw his efforts in learning magic. To motivate him further, the king ordered Luster to attend the academy in the kingdom. Tamatsu quickly formulated a plan to demonstrate his abilities to the king without being too obvious, wary of the dangerous eldest prince, Mahito, the instigator of the war between the two nations. Facing Mahito meant Tamatsu couldn't protect Xena. So, his only option was to level up, a lot, to safeguard Xena. He then asked Xena to accompany him to a new dungeon, the Slippery Dungeon, anticipating something unusual happening there. Meanwhile, a nobleman of the empire, Gorman, exploited his power. During a natural disaster in the southern region, when people sought refuge, he sold them to slave traders, making a fortune to indulge in lavish parties. One night, as he boasted to a partner, a mummy entered his room, startling him. Before he could scream, he was dead. Beside him was a new maid, who was actually an assassin named Lena, sent to kill him. At the royal palace, the third prince, Royd, still wheelchair-bound, went to see his brother. He had never felt worse in his life. In a previous attempt to burn Luster's castle, the magic had backfired on him. The second prince, Aroga, seemed indifferent, failing to recognize his disfigured brother. Aroga had seen Luster in the library recently and suspected he had learned some magic. This realization alarmed Royd, unwilling to accept that a worthless person like Luster could surpass him. Determined to reclaim his power, he asked Aroga for help. Laughing, Aroga refused, stating he only intervened in battles with worthy opponents. He reminded Royd that he had always handled his troubles, from weak to strong enemies, but now Aroga had changed. If Royd wanted his help, he needed a formidable opponent, and dealing with a weakling like Luster was Royd's problem to solve. While the two princes were glaring at each other, the eldest prince of the empire arrived, calming them down. First, he praised Aroga for his victory at the southern border, then turned his attention to Royd's injured leg. Aroga immediately blamed Luster for the injury, surprising Mahat. Mahat's change in expression frightened Royd, who feared a reprimand, but instead, Mahat simply patted Royd's head in encouragement and left with a bright smile. Royd was confused by Mahat's quick departure, as he had convened the meeting. Mahat's calm demeanor revealed his sole desire was to see his younger brothers safe and happy. After the meeting, Royd returned to his room, still worried about Luster growing stronger each day. He couldn't allow Luster to surpass him and pulled out a phone and a list of assassins, planning to hire them to break Luster's bones, preventing him from entering dungeons. He chose Lena, the corrosive assassin, known for her brutality. Royd quickly called her, sending pictures of both Luster and Xena, with instructions to kill them in the slippery hallway dungeon. The slippery hallway dungeon, once a castle of a kingdom, had been abandoned for years after being conquered by the Empire and had now become a dungeon. Tomatsu eagerly entered, excited to discover new things. Xena, following behind, noticed an unfamiliar man nearby, confused about his presence since she had been the only one accompanying her master. Introducing herself to the stranger, who remained silent, Tomatsu called out to Xena, showing off a pile of moss he had collected. He planned to use the moss to attract smiles, creatures that fed on moss, and then use his lightning skill to kill them in one go. The skill amplified damage on water-soaked targets or those with water traits, perfect for the smiles. Xena enthusiastically attacked the smiles, boosting EXP for her master. She understood why Tomatsu collected the moss, but she remained suspicious of the mysterious man who seemed to be observing them. Although their focus was on defeating smiles, Xena made sure to stay alert. Tomatsu quickly rose to level 8, and Xena also leveled up consistently. Continuing to lure smiles with more moss, Tomatsu used his lightning skill to gain more experience points, reaching level 10, a milestone that enabled him to learn new magic. Tomatsu pulled out a book he had borrowed from the library and, after some searching, decided to choose a long-range lightning skill. He continued hunting smiles, rapidly advancing to level 15 in less than a day. With all the smiles in the dungeon hunted, he excitedly asked Xena what to hunt next. Everything was going better than planned. He had reached a level that, according to the main storyline, would take 5 years to achieve. Soon, he would meet the hero. Returning to their immediate concern, they aimed for the deepest part of the dungeon. Xena had already reached level 20, qualifying her for a job class change with a transformation stone, which Tomatsu promptly gave her. Suddenly, a zombie dropped from the ceiling, attacking them. Xena quickly pulled Tomatsu aside to dodge the attack, intending to draw her sword against the zombie but halted, noticing how smiles disintegrated upon touching it. Staying there was unsafe, so Xena carried Tomatsu, attempting to reach the dungeon's deepest part. However, they were stopped by numerous traps laid out ahead. Assassin Lena was waiting at the end of the trap-filled path. To reach her, they had to navigate through the traps, but staying put risked being attacked by the zombie. Faced with a dilemma, Tomatsu started panicking. To reach the dungeon's depths, they had to overcome the traps, but how? Tamatsu planned to eliminate the zombie first but realized he had depleted his mana fighting the smiles. In a hurry, Tamatsu looked for a mana potion and then saw Xena asking for the job transformation crystal. Determined, Xena decided to eliminate the zombie. Tamatsu didn't fully grasp her plan. The zombie's ability was corrosion, harmless unless it touched skin. Xena used the transformation crystal, changing her job class from an assassin to an advanced class, and swiftly slashed the zombie into pieces without giving it a chance to counterattack, stunning Tamatsu. As an advanced assassin, Xena's speed and observational skills had significantly improved. After defeating the zombie, Xena swiftly navigated through Lena's traps, avoiding them all. Tamatsu then remembered Xena's first ability, to move through areas without triggering traps. Confronting Lena, Xena surprised her by reaching her unscathed and had many questions for her. Xena first realized that the zombie and Lena were part of the same mercenary group, hired to kill others for money. Xena was puzzled by the zombie's speed and corrosive ability. Lena laughed at her question, revealing that she had granted the zombie these powers. The magic would reduce the lifespan of its victim by 10 years per second of contact until nothing remained. The zombie was special, possessing the ability to regenerate itself. Xena, understanding the situation, confronted Lena, angered that Lena would use such a dreadful skill on her own master. Lena, provoked, enhanced the zombie's strength and ordered it to attack Xena. In the ensuing battle, Xena's sword was broken, and she was knocked unconscious by a punch from the zombie. Fortunately, her clothes provided protection from the corrosive effect. At this moment, Tamatsu was furious at seeing Xena hurt and decided it was time for Lena to die. Lena mocked him, thinking a worthless prince couldn't harm her, but then she noticed the mysterious man behind Tamatsu and panicked, realizing she had been unaware of his presence. This man was Tamatsu's trump card, which he hadn't expected to use so soon. Rewinding time to a small village in the south, Karen, the holy knight of the kingdom, appeared with her team. They were tracking criminals hiding in the empire, including the cleaner Lena, the headhunter Shul, the Smil controller Yuri, and the giant Kakashi. Karen had already captured Kakashi and imprisoned him. Now, she focused on capturing the remaining three. Kakashi, however, foolishly sought revenge against Karen instead of fleeing. Karen allowed him to strike her once, breaking his weapon effortlessly. Realizing the vast power gap, Karen swiftly knocked him out with a single sword strike. She intentionally left him alive to face punishment in the kingdom. Karen was excited about this mission as the criminals on her list were extremely dangerous. She had hoped for a serious challenge but found that they were no match for her true strength. Karen longed to meet someone truly formidable, someone who could stir the knightly blood within her to fight with all her might. After completing her task, Karen and her team continued their journey. Previously, while pursuing Kakashi, she had noticed a man and a woman in the dungeon, seemingly there for leveling up. She recognized the man as the fourth prince of the empire, Luster. Despite rumors of his weakness, Karen saw determination and maturity in Luster's eyes, something she had been seeking for a long time. Caught up in her thoughts, Karen accidentally fell into the slippery hallway dungeon. She was there to capture Lena but inadvertently saw Luster and Xena about to enter. Karen's guide had heard rumors about Lena being a devilish figure among the nobility, known for taking on tasks involving nobles. Realizing Luster was in danger in the dungeon, Karen couldn't accept this, believing he would become powerful in the future and resolved to protect him from Lena. Arriving at the dungeon entrance, Karen was spotted by Xena, which impressed her, as few could detect her presence. However, she quickly lost track of Xena and Tamatsu and hurried after them. Inside, she found signs of a struggle and sensed the zombies' electronic waves getting closer. Fearing for Luster's safety, Karen rushed to rescue him, worried she would regret it if he were killed. But upon arriving, she was baffled to see that despite attacks from the zombie and Lena, Luster remained unaffected by their decomposing effects. Then, with just one strike, he defeated both of them.